Welcome to I Got You podcast. Today's conversation is going to be a tender one. We're talking about what it means to grieve a marriage that lasted over 2 decades. My guest today is a woman whose husband asked for a divorce after 24 years of marriage while she was still raising her children and holding her family together. This episode is about grief, identity, motherhood, and finding strength when life changes without your consent. If this conversation brings up emotions for you, please pause, breathe, and know you're not alone. So thank you for being on, Onjeinika. Can you just tell me a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, Heather, and thank you for having me today. My name is Onjeinika Richardson, and I am a writer. I'm a mom, sister friend, all the things. I'm also an entrepreneur, and so although I write for work, I also have written two self-published books, one with my sister and one is a memoir. So that's the thing I love to do the most, and that's what I identify with.
Wow. Okay. So, all right. Thank you so much again for being on. My first question, when your husband first asked for a divorce after 24 years, what was your first emotions that really hit you?
Well, my first emotion was shock, and
Mm.
I just was surprised because after everything we had been through, like and at the point it was 23 years. We were about 3 months out from our anniversary, and our youngest child had just graduated, and we were having a conversation, and that he pretty much said, he didn't know if he wanted to be married. And so in my mind, that sounds like you don't want to be married
Right.
because it's been, that number of years.
Right.
And so because that's how he said it, I was very, very surprised. But my first thought was to, like to comfort him. We both felt a lot of emotions about that in the moment, and like we were crying and trying to comfort each other and talk through it, and it seemed that he just needed some time, and I was going to hold that space and give him the time and give him the support and everything that he needed, and that's the way it began, but that's not really what it ended up being.
Really? Wow. That's so good though, for even for you to say you held space for him after he said that. Most women probably would have been like, "What you mean?" and probably got so upset, in the beginning, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I just have never been that way. Like my relationship with him is, I think just because I am the emotional one, like I'm able to hold that space for people. And I don't think of it as a bad thing. Sometimes it can make you too vulnerable, but
Mhm.
that was my husband. So I felt like if you're going to put yourself out there for anybody. You're
Right.
going to do it for your spouse, your children, whatever, family. So I chose to say, okay, we can work through this. Let me know what you need. And that was him saying, he needed space, he needed time, he needed some help to figure things out. And I
Okay.
said, okay,
That's how it began. Okay.
yeah.
How would you describe the grief though after having a long-term marriage end? Did you feel any type of grief?
I felt grief in the beginning, which is especially watching him feel like, he didn't want to make that decision. He didn't want to feel like that. So my heart hurt for him. But then as I began to realize, like what this meant or could mean, unraveling a family and just
Mm.
all of that, there was a lot of grief. And having been together for so long, we met in college. So
Wow.
that there was a ton of grief. And I think I was more trying not to get to the grief stage because I didn't
Okay.
want to give up on my marriage right in the beginning. I
Right.
was hoping we could work it out.
Okay. Wow. So after being a wife for so long, right, how did the divorce affect your sense of identity? Did it affect it in any way?
Not really, not really. Because in the beginning, when he said he didn't know if he wanted to be married, and then about 4 months later to where he decided he didn't want to be married, a lot happened there. And so I was able to see like his true personality and who he
Oh,
really was. And so that made a difference in how I felt exiting the marriage.
yeah.
And I think me being who I am is really, I think that kind of caused him to make his decision because I didn't change like from who I am. I
Right.
grew over the marriage into the person that I am. And that person, I have boundaries, I have standards, I have
Mhm.
things that I want for myself. And so I can't allow somebody to walk all over me.
Makes sense. And something you just said though, that you learned who he was, even though it's after 20 something years of
Hmm.
being with somebody,
Yep.
it's almost like you still don't know the person that's living with you, right?
I didn't know him, and I knew I didn't know him
Oh, you did?
because I'll say it this way, I didn't know him deeply, but I knew his habits and his ways extremely well. And so
Mhm.
because I'd been with him for so long, I knew that there was something going on, that there was something wrong. I had always known, but I would force the issue or, like I can't try to change someone. So I think that's the best way to say it.
Mhm.
So I held space because we had made a decision to be together, had a family. I loved him very, very much.
Mhm.
And I felt, given time, given space, given prayer, all the things, maybe he would grow. And so when you finally see who someone is and that's not what you thought, you have to make your own decisions.
Okay, as a mother, how did you balance your own grief though while still showing up for your kids?
That was difficult. I think that was the hardest part for me, was not just myself and what I needed to do to take care of myself, get through it, but watching my children because we weren't in a contentious house. We weren't in a house with arguing and fighting. That was not it didn't feel like that to them.
Mm.
So it was just like it was surprising to me. It was a complete shock to the kids. And so just watching them fall apart or the shut down, the different ways that they dealt with it, all three of them, my heart just broke. And so I knew for me to help them get through it, I had to put myself on the back burner. I was not dealing with my grief. I was going to provide structure, whatever they needed, and be there to listen to them without bringing my emotions into it so that they could feel supported.
You see society always talking about women are so emotional. They probably would be saying so many things to their kids, but you put yourself on a back burner to make sure your kids were good.
I
What?
tried to, and it was hard. I mean, and sometimes we would have to have some conversations, and I have one of my children is a lot like me, and she's very emotional, and she will speak on her emotions, and it was really hard for her if I said the slightest thing like, "Your father was not kind to me," because I didn't want them to know the details,
Mm.
like all what actually I didn't want them to know because
Oh,
I didn't think that that was fair, and I didn't want to change how they might look at him
right.
or their relationship. I want them to have a relationship. But she said, I couldn't even say that. Like, I couldn't even say he was unkind. That was sending her.
Oh,
So it was hard to be like, but you don't know what he did. You don't know what
right.
and I had to suppress that so that
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
understand and
Wow.
say, okay, I get it. I won't even say that much
Right.
because that's too much and it hurts.
So, and I guess that's the question I was going to ask. What conversations with your kids were the hardest for you? And I guess that's a part of it,
That
right?
was the one. That one with my daughter was the hardest one for me
Mm.
just because like I said, she shows more emotion. My other two children, we have talked about it as much as we can. My son does not talk a lot, but definitely I can tell how he's feeling when we do speak about it. My oldest is all fire, and so it's it's
Oh,
like she's going to say it, but then she also has her priorities. So the conversation I had with my other daughter was the hardest one because you know that you can't talk bad. Well, you know that you shouldn't talk bad about the other parent
yeah.
if you want to keep those relationships intact. But not being able to say a single anything or like I'm
Mm.
hurting, that was hard.
It had to be hard. And that's one thing. Sometimes I wonder what's the right thing. Yes, you don't bash the other person to especially to your kids. But if something was honestly happening, do you keep that from your kids? Do you and again, not going into like your daddy did this, your daddy did that, but hey, we went through, I don't know, like having some conversation, truthful conversation, so they understand, especially it depends on the age that they are.
Right. So yeah, my kids were at the time, well, when they were told they were 18, my youngest had just turned 18. And like
Mhm.
I said, and the two youngest ones had just gone off to college. So it was just terrible timing. Of course, it's never good timing.
Right.
But they were 18, 19, and 20. So that that played into it because although you might think they're old enough,
Mhm.
which I know was said to them at some point, not by me, but that you might think that they're old enough to handle it. You just have to look at them as children. And so the conversation needs to be had about what was really going on, but you need to be aware of the time frame.
I love
So
it.
in the beginning they weren't ready for that. In the beginning was just hold them, comfort them, be there. If they said something mean about him, calm them, whatever you needed to do,
Mhm.
listen.
Right.
And then wait is what I had to do until we could move further. and have other conversations.
The place and the time.
Yep, you couldn't do it not right away. It was too
Yeah,
raw.
yeah, okay. And that's the thing, I'm doing a podcast with 2 young ladies who are from divorced parents, and they're 23 going on 24, and the same thing you're saying right now is that they had a problem because both parents don't even speak. So they're being affected at their age
Yeah,
moving forward that their parents can't even be in the same room. What's gonna happen when we get older? Certain things
yeah,
like that. So I'm glad you said what you said. So
that's a good point. You have to
yeah,
think about all of that.
all of that. Yeah. So what does loneliness look like though after 24 years of marriage? After this ends, how does it look?
I'm not lonely.
No?
No, I think, in the beginning, yes, there's a transition, and I think it's gonna depend on the person, but for
Mhm.
me, I am an introvert. I am a person, like, during
Mm.
the pandemic, I was a I had a fine time. I was okay. I could check on my family, we could do Zooms, whatever. I was good.
Really?
I love people, so I'm not like I don't like people, I love
Mhm.
people, but I'm a person that can be by myself, and I've just always been like that.
Yeah.
Although I was with my husband for, like I said, like, total time was almost 32 years because we met in college.
Oh.
So, in the beginning, it was difficult being in the house alone because the kids had all just gone to college, so it was the first time being an empty nester.
Mhm.
Like, all of that, and then once he moved out is really when it hit because, we did separation and there was a point where it was time for him to move. And so
Right.
that's when I sensed, okay, I can't go like a whole week without talking to people.
Yeah.
So, like, if I did church from home, I've had to remember, okay, you need to interact.
Mm.
I couldn't work a whole week from home because then you get in your head too much.
That's true.
So that's the type of loneliness I will experience. So I just know I need to make sure I'm out of the house.
Mm.
But it's not a loneliness like I need another person in romantic relationship with me. So I
Okay.
don't experience that.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good. So, what has this season taught you though about your strength? Because right now you seem really very strong.
I'm stronger than I knew. So I knew I could do it. I knew it was going to be hard, but it was harder than I thought it would be. I couldn't imagine it was going to be this difficult. It was and is painful because the divorce has only been final for 6 months. So, there was a period of
Oh.
separation. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still new, but because I think of when it started, was 2024.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's been enough time because the beginning and waiting and making sure it was the right decision, and then the separation began, and then you have to do 6 months of separation before you can file for divorce
Mm.
in our state, and only
Yeah.
6 months because the kids are all emancipated, they call it. They're all out of high school.
Yeah. Wow.
So, yeah, so it's actually fast,
Yeah.
but I'm stronger than I knew. 'Cause I
Yeah.
knew this was hard, but it's so many facets to it, so many aspects to
Right.
it.
Right. So, did you try to fight to keep it, and he just said, "I'm done," or was it a mutual
Yeah,
at the
I
end?
did.
Oh, you did.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I did because when he said he wasn't sure, and although I heard, "You're not sure after all this time," to me means you don't wanna be married. I
Yeah.
didn't wanna make that decision for him because I wanted my marriage. I wanted my family, and I loved my husband, and so I was like, okay, I'm gonna do. And I actually went and told him, I can do anything you need me to do, except like there were certain things I could do. Like, I'm not gonna let you like walk all over me. I can't do that. You can't like have me and whoever else you want
Right.
and, live that kind of life. I'm not doing that knowingly. I'm
Right.
not that woman.
Not knowing,
And
yeah.
so I told him, I'm like, if you want to go to therapy together at some point, he wanted to go alone in the beginning, and he said he was going, and that was good. I
Right.
encouraged that, and I was hoping, this would turn around from there. And so I would say, I check in on him, but he would not communicate. So he did not want to communicate. He did not want to share. And at a point where I said, well, do you want to go to counseling together? He said no. And so I knew at that point,
That is
you don't want to do anything. And then he said, no, I don't want to do that.
right.
I want a divorce.
Wow.
So once that was said,
Wow.
that's time to move.
Yeah, yeah. Did your relationship or friendship change after your divorce with other people?
With other people like my friends and
Your friends
family,
and your family.
I'm closer to some of my friends
Mhm.
because of it. I mean, my friends, my sister and I have a sister cousin held me took me through, and I have a friend, we're really close, that, lives near me, and she's that friend. Like, we went out and had our margaritas and, went to dinner and had a good time, and, she's not gonna pull punches when it
Yeah,
comes to anybody, and so sometimes you just need that. So I feel like it got better.
that's good.
And my father called and checked on me, my
That's good.
auntie, like, everybody just kinda rallied around me, my
That's good.
family, and that
That's
was
good.
good.
Wow. If you could speak to the woman you were on the day your divorce was requested, what would you tell her now?
That's tough. I would tell her it's not going to work out how you want it to, but how it turns out will be better. It's better.
Yeah, that's better. It's
It's
more
better.
you feel more peace.
I'm at peace.
Yeah.
That's the key. It's like, because knowing when a person isn't sharing their whole self, or,
Yeah.
and you know that there's like an underlying something and you can never put your finger on it. And you've been around, and you've tried to solve things, and it seemed like a good marriage.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was aware we weren't best friends. But when you know that there's an undercurrent there, I
Yeah.
was just kind of waiting. And then
Really?
I prayed that prayer for God to reveal to me the things I couldn't.
That is something,
And another woman that got divorced said that she was telling she coaches, and she was telling the ladies,
Mhm.
pray the prayer and ask for God to reveal it, but ask him to prepare your heart for what you
Mm,
find. And I didn't have that last piece on my prayer.
right.
So, but I felt like he prepared me anyway.
Yeah.
So the way it worked out, it was not at all what I wanted.
Yeah.
I can't lie and say this is what I thought was. No, but it is better. Being at peace is better. Being close with my children is better, because my children absolutely checked on me.
Oh, I love it. I love it. To any woman right now, right? What do you want women listening who are going through this early stages? Not just women, because even men going
Yeah.
through this in the early stage. Would you want them to know?
I want them to know that it is okay to choose you. It is okay to love yourself and to know that you are valuable,
Mhm.
you are worthy. You don't need someone else to validate you. That comes from within. That comes from within. God made you how you are. And so you are worthy of love and good things. And so I don't want anyone to make themselves into a punching bag, or to be there for someone who, even if they care for you and they
Right.
buy you nice things, and they take care of those kinds of things, they can still do emotional damage. And it's just not, it's not okay. So
Yeah.
you don't have to endure that.